What up? Welcome to From Beyond Champaign. I am Cody. You can follow me on Twitter at Cody_CHGO. And I'm joined by my good pal, my good friend, also co-worker, Patrick Norton. He just newly full-time hire at CHGO. Also Illinois fan. So now he gets to come on here and be
degenerate.
A degenerate with me.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I just got a notification that this video was retweeted to CHGO Bears, so make sure.
That was a mistake.
Yeah, I was like, this is weird. Does Patrick have that capability?
I immediately undid that. We're gonna hope that no one gets yelled at in that situation.
Yeah.
Who's gonna yell at me? Really?
I was like, this is weird. That's not Bragg's. That's for sure not Bragg's.
Hogue's just a huge Illinois.
Yeah, right.
He loves it when when Wisconsin gets their ass kicked every year.
For like the 9th straight time. I think Illinois has 8 straight wins over Wisconsin.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Which is just, it really is chef's kiss because Wisconsin used to own Illinois before the Underwood era.
Yeah.
So anyway, hello to everyone. Thank you for everyone's support. Before we start, I want to give a shout out to all the people who subscribed. Went over 500 subscribers just within the last couple days. Thanks to this show and the new sports betting show that I've been doing with my good pal Tommy Irby, and we had Blake Clow on Cowell. I think it's Cowell. Blake Cowell on yesterday for Monday Night Football bets. It's rolling. We don't get views like we do at CHGO, but we also don't have 70,000 subscribers almost. So, if you build it, they will come. Hopefully that's what happens here, in some aspects. So I just want to give a shout out to everyone who subscribed. It means a lot. So maybe by the end of the college basketball season, we will have reached 1,000. We'll see. Maybe that should be my new goal for 2025, I guess, or the 24-25 season, the 20-year anniversary of the Final Four team that stole my heart and then broke it thanks to Sean May. But that's another story as well, Patrick.
I feel like it should be. I should make it very clear that I am a Kansas fan too, having gone to Kansas. So the whole Bill Self thing kind of muddies the water a little bit, but it's all right.
You went to Kansas, but your entire family went to Illinois, correct?
Yeah, I am like the Bill Self of my family.
Yeah. So we talked about this at the bar this summer. You before you went to Kansas, you were an Illinois fan. And so you grew up an Illinois fan. I still think you like Illinois. Now, I'm curious how you would root if Illinois and Kansas had to play, though.
That's a really good question. When I went to the Illinois-Kansas football game earlier this year, we were sitting among KU fans. And so I was dressed, and also like my group was KU people. So I was wearing KU garb. And in turn, that also meant that I took a lot of like shit from the Illinois fans that were around me. And like, I didn't want to be like, hey, I'm one of you guys, like, stop doing that. Yeah. But, I kind of based it off of who I think will have the better season, as like trashy as that sounds. Not to be like a fair weather, but if it's like, all right, I thought the Kansas football was going to have a really good year. They're having an awful year. But at the time, I thought that they were going to have a really good year. So it was kind of like I hope that they win to further like their season. Like this would be a good win for them to get started with. Sure. Obviously, things have changed, so I'm glad that game went the way that it did. So it really is a game by game basis. Yeah, and they don't play each other a lot or enough to have that like clashing.
Yeah,
they played a lot in the last year, or like calendar year. So it's all come up differently and everything. But
well, all I can say is that cheering for Illinois and just really salivating in the fact that Hunter Dickinson has 0 wins against Illinois, and he should have I wish you could add another loss to that record last year in that exhibition game, but that doesn't count because it's an exhibition game.
Yep.
All I'm saying is if I was an Illinois fan and I just happened to go to Kansas as well, like you did, it'd be extremely hard for me to give any support to someone like Hunter Dickinson, who I think is like the Christian Leitner of this modern.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful. And it was like fun when he was not doing well at the end of last year.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents on that, man.
Yep.
But,
nope. I agree.
Now just like I said, like you said, you grew up an Illinois fan. So how do you feel about this team? Put all your Kansas stuff aside. How do you feel about this team heading into 24-25?
Is it weird that I think a lot of it's based on how they finished last year, but I feel relatively good. Like despite the roster turnover, you're only returning Ty Rodgers and Gibbs Lawhorn. That's all right. And we'll kind of see what Ty Rodgers produces because there were times last year I'm trying to think if it was the Iowa game maybe that I'm thinking of or it was the Purdue game where there were just drives where it just was like Ty Rodgers right now is a negative to be on the floor. Can he limit those games this year? That will kind of be the big question.
Yeah.
And then does everyone else gel together? But it's what Brad Underwood has decided to do with his program, and it has worked well. And now he's gotten over the first weekend hump to where I kind of like what we're going. I'm excited to see what will happen. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm excited for it to start.
Excited and interested is like the best way I can explain it for me. Yeah. Because he's proven that no matter what, Illinois should be an automatic bid to make the NCAA tournament, which for years was like a question. You never knew for sure if that was going to happen. But you never knew if they were going to go far. You know, they had the year where they were the 1 seed with Ayo Dosunmu and Trent Frazier and Adam Miller and Kofi Coburn, and then lose to Loyola. Anytime Emma brings that up at the office, I get irrationally angry. But yeah,
why can I not think of the name of their beefy center?
It's on the tip of my Cameron Krutwig. Ugh.
Yep, Cam Krutwig. Yep.
But outside of that season and last season, you know, there's successes, there's success stories, but there's not a lot of like March success, right?
Yep.
And so like that's a thing. Like I feel like there's reasonable question for fans to have for Brad Underwood, but at the same time, I think entering this season, I think most of the fan base has a large amount of confidence in him based off what happened last year, based on the fact that you have 2 players returning from last year, and you have a roster full of guys who are really, really talented. Now, can he get them to gel before, you know, February? To me, it's by February you need them to start gelling because you need to take some momentum into March. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
that's the thing.
You also have a really tough start to your season.
Yes, we talked about that on my last episode where we kind of broke down the schedule with Sonny Verma from Locked On Illini, and yeah, like Alabama, Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee. That's tough.
And I would say the good thing about that is that it's a good test, and it's also early enough where it's not going to hurt you from getting into the tournament if those games are close or however those games play out, really. You obviously don't want to get swept in them, but it's a good like litmus test to see where you are, especially early on in this season. Yeah. And it's not it's not going to give you the end result of how the season will go, but it's a really good way to get going into it, especially when you play Duke in February and you play Purdue to end the year, and now you're adding in teams. You know, UCLA is kind of a wild card as to what they'll bring. I don't think that it'll be much, but we'll kind of see what they bring to the Big Ten this year.
Right.
It's a different looking conference. And so it's a good thing that your non-con is also different than what we've seen in the past.
Is certainly Brad Underwood putting these young guys like Kasparis and Will Riley and, a lot of these, like those two specifically, but, a lot of guys, even some of their transfers who haven't played in like a Big Ten environment, like Trey White coming from Louisville, not to put anything down on the ACC, but like it's not like Louisville's been selling out the arena the last couple of years either. These guys are going to be playing in like a packed house in Champaign. I mean, they sold out the student season tickets in like 30 minutes when those went out this year. Like this is going to be a packed house in Champaign, and then on the road, when Illinois goes to places on the road, people want to go see because the last handful of years, they've, especially in conference, they've been competitive. They have more wins than any other team in conference the last 5 years. So me personally, I just feel like a lot of these players, especially the guy from, maybe a better example would be like, I can't say his name right, so I'm going to work on it. But the transfer from Evansville, right? Like he's coming from the Missouri Valley to the Big Ten. Like they're going to play in some big crowds, some Big Ten environments, and to get some experience against some of these SEC schools along the way first, hopefully grooms them. And I think like it will be I might get some newfound respect for Brad Underwood if they have a decent non-conference. I'm optimistic for winning 3 out of 4 against those SEC schools.
Sure,
but I think the best situation is if they at least split. And I think the two that I think they need to win are Mizzou and Arkansas. I think Tennessee and Alabama will be really tough, especially Alabama.
Especially Alabama. Tennessee is a well-coached team, especially earlier on in the season.
Right.
Yeah. And then obviously like getting going, and no offense, but starting with a cupcake, like your boys, the Eastern with
Harvard of the Midwest.
Harvard of the Midwest.
Yes.
Unfortunately, not like the Duke of the Midwest. So like going from Eastern and then SIU Edwardsville to then like Oakland, and then bam, you're playing Alabama, which is a good thing. Like that's kind of like what we're saying is that, hey, that's a great way to start your season, and like get off. Maybe you can get off even on like the right note too. But like it's also good that expectations are probably going to be pretty low for that game. Like I don't know, I doubt that there is a spread available on that game right now, but and it's not like we'd be able to bet it anyway. But but like that will be double digits probably, like almost certainly. And I think that Illinois should at least be able to make it a competitive game.
Yeah. If you told me the spread for that game, let's just put it, I feel like it's disrespectful to put it at 12. But just say it's anywhere from 10 to 12 points. I'd probably take Illinois to cover because I think they can at least hang around. Or maybe I'd take the first half spread.
Yep.
But it will be tough. That Alabama team is really good. So yeah, that's why I'm saying like to me, if they at least split, that'd be fine. 3 out of 4 would be great, and I'd be as delusional and ready to claim this team's going to the Final Four, by January 1st, especially if they do that and beat Northwestern and Wisconsin in December. Like I'm just saying, like I would get real delusional like I normally do. So
and that's kind of the thing that you run into with not only the scheduling, but also the roster turnover, is that you don't have to worry about how will they respond after how last year ended. And last year ended relatively on a positive note, but at the end of the day, getting blown out by UConn is probably a tough way to go. But they like you don't have to worry about like how will these guys respond because it's an entirely new core. And then secondly, when it comes to the schedule, what a recruiting tool you have, because if you win those games or if you are competitive in them, not only do you attract that attention to yourself of like, hey, look, like we can do this with a group that's brand new, consider coming to Illinois.
Yeah.
But it's a really good showcase for the program as a whole.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. No, I agree. So before we move on, we're going to talk about Illinois not being, they're going to enter the season unranked. And I want to talk about the KenPom rankings that came out this week too. So before we get to that, I guess right here, right now on October, 15th?
Yep.
Before they've even played a game, what would be a success? Like, not necessarily like they're not going to be national title favorites, right? But like,
no,
what would be a successful season for you and your expectations heading into 2024, 25?
I hate to not raise the expectations, but second weekend is a success for this program.
Yeah.
And that will be regardless of what their expectations are going into any season, even if it's like, hey, they could be a legit Final Four contender versus, hey, they might squeak into the tournament this year. Anytime that they get to the second weekend should be considered a success for a program like Illinois, which has done incredibly well despite or has done incredibly well in the Brad Underwood era, despite constantly just kind of being overlooked as like one of the elite Big Ten programs or one of the elite programs overall. So second weekend is kind of what I'm looking at. If they get to the Elite Eight, great. Like that's kind of the dream right now. And I would love to ride that high from last year again. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I think that those are fair, and I think that's honestly what the bare minimum I think should be. I think not this season, but the season after, depending on how many people stay. You know, Kasparis probably going to go to the NBA. He's projected to be a one and done. You know, depending on how many people stay and don't transfer out, like 25, 26 could be a real like national championship caliber Illinois team, depending on how things play out this year, right?
Yep.
That's like, to me, that's the hope. But we obviously, that's just on paper. That's like hoping and believing that all these guys are going to turn out to be what we hope they be, right? And they certainly could. And I believe in Brad Underwood, right? So I think at the bare minimum for this year, for sure, yeah, I would agree. Second weekend. So, all right. Now, I kind of made a video. It's on my TikTok and my Instagram, and it's a short on my YouTube channel yesterday. The Associated Press poll, first one of the year, came out, and Illinois is not in it. Of the Big Ten teams in there, it was Purdue at 14, Indiana at 17, and Rutgers at 25. I believe on the website said Illinois got some votes.
Who's number one?
Number one, Kansas. Why would you bring
that up? I just said that I wasn't sure.
Kansas did great in the transfer portal. They should be ranked number one.
They bought a championship roster.
Yeah.
So
perhaps, yes. They bought a championship roster, perhaps, yes. So they entered this year unranked, and out of curiosity, I went and looked what the preseason poll was last year. They were ranked 25th at the beginning of last year. And to be honest with you, I'm not someone who gets all up in arms about rankings, especially in the AP poll. I definitely pay more attention to KenPom. I'm not some computer nerd guy, as you know, working with me, but I do think that there is more weight on the KenPom rankings than like what the Associated Press poll is putting out on a weekly basis. You know, they've been putting that poll out for literally my entire life and before that. And so it's like, it's popular. I'm not even trying to like put it down for like, it's, you know, if you should take any seriousness in it or anything. It's not that. It's more about just like, I'm actually okay with the fact that they're not ranked, because I think it's just nice fuel heading into the year for a team.
It's a great chip on their shoulder. And I forget which like Illini writer it was, whether it was Jeremy Werner or Joey Wagner. Mm-hmm. But one of them said Brad Underwood's going to love that they're not ranked.
Yeah.
And they're exactly right. Like that's exactly what he looks forward to, is finding that fuel. And for what it's worth, I think Kansas was number 1 last year. And so that's kind of why I bring up the Kansas as 1 this year, is because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much. Kansas was not good last year. They had issues, they had injury issues pop up throughout the year. But like DeJuan Harris was bad, or played poorly down the stretch. Like a lot of things can change. UConn, starting the year at number 3, they've won the last 2 national titles. Like how can you possibly tell yourself, despite roster turnover, because they've had it in each of the last 2 years, that they're not number 1 going into the year? Like what dropped them 2 spots?
Right.
So I think they're not. I think Illinois is not ranked to start the year because of this fear of we haven't seen the success from Brad Underwood like we saw last year, and we have no idea how he'll respond from that.
Yeah.
In addition to the roster turnover that there has been, but I think people closer to the program, whether it's us just watching them or people who are covering them or anyone, I think we feel a little bit more confident because we've been following this like exponential growth from the Illinois program to become like a legit contender every year. Not contender for a national title per se, kind of. I mean, anything can happen in March, but contender to make waves in March for sure.
Jay in our YouTube chat says, fine with Illinois not being ranked, tons of unknowns with this roster.
Yeah.
And that's legitimately
Absolutely.
true. That's legitimately true too. And that's another reason why I'm not too upset. But this is the only real reason why I'm a little upset. And this is what comes with looking at all the different rankings. And that's why you can only take so much of it with a grain of salt. But if Illinois is in the AP poll is behind Rutgers and Indiana, then how the hell did KenPom put them second behind Purdue in the Big Ten rankings on their Big Ten rankings? And then how in the hell were they put 23rd on their list and above Indiana and Rutgers on their list as well? Like, what is in their algorithm that I don't know about? Like, explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. But this is the thing about KenPom is like they use like numbers and like projections and stuff to kind of put these rankings together. And that's fine, right? Like I understand that there's complete different outlook on both of these rankings or whatever, but it just seems like such a major difference, and at least in the Big Ten one. Like, I think Illinois was just on the outside of the top 25 in the AP poll, but like KenPom has them second in the Big Ten rankings, right behind Purdue. What's crazy though is that they had like I think like over half the teams projected to finish like 9 and 11 in conference, and with Illinois being the number 1, like the top team of that. And so like again, you can only take take it all with a grain of salt, but like I just when you look at it from that aspect, it just seems kind of different to me. So I guess that's the only reason that it kind of irks me that they're not in there, because clearly KenPom's projections or belief is thinks that they deserve to be in that top 25. And so like I feel a little disrespected, but also like it's great bulletin board material, Patrick.
So based on the AP poll, they would be 26th in points. 25th is Rutgers, and 24th is Ole Miss. And I know that they have that scrimmage or exhibition coming up in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. But Rutgers is 102 points. Illinois would have 92. So they're right outside. They just don't get a number next to their name to start the year. The KenPom thing is interesting to me. They're ranked 23rd, and to start the year, their offensive rating, I believe, is
top 20.
Yeah, it's 16th, and then
16th.
Their defensive rating is 40th, and I think that's I forgot the name of the YouTube commenter because I don't see it. Jay. Lots of unknowns on this roster. That's where the unknowns kind of come into play. I have no doubt in my mind that they will be very strong offensively. It's how will they look defensively.
Yeah.
But I also tend to give Underwood kind of the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, there were times last year where it was a little shaky, but I also think that was just kind of the pace that they played with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that Illinois is certainly a top 25 team. I have a question for you, though.
Okay.
How high do you think they would be had they landed AJ Storr in the transfer portal?
Oh, I think they would have been a top 20 team to start the year.
I think it's probably even higher than that. I think it's probably
I mean,
top
at
15.
the yeah, maybe even sneaking into that top 12, top 10.
Yeah.
They were. I don't know if they ever were really that serious on Story. It was always a thing that was talked about during the season, during the Big Ten season last year, when things with Wisconsin weren't going well, and like rumors get out there, whatever, the message boards. But yeah, I mean, the best thing that Illinois could do after he decided to go to Kansas was go and get a guy like Will Riley and Kasparis as well, who again I think will be a one and done this year. And it's not like Illinois is a one and done program, but to bring a talent in like that, it'll be fun to watch him develop as the season goes along. And he's going to have some really good tests early on. So yeah, I mean,
now I have another question for you, and I know that you've talked about it before, but we have not talked about it.
Okay.
But Orlando Antigua is coming back.
Right.
That's, to me, significant.
It is, yes.
And yeah, I mean, it absolutely is significant. But to me, it's a big deal. And I know that it was a move that was kind of made at a point in the offseason where it was big, but it maybe not at like the ideal time, to where his full impact wasn't felt in recruiting as much as you'd like to have seen. But this team is also very young. I mean, they have 5 freshmen, I think 3 sophomores, and only like 1, maybe 2 fifth-years. So it's a relatively young team. The development of this team, not only just for the beginning of the year, but throughout the entire year and into next, can really be interesting too. I think there's like this expectation that Underwood, because this year and he has in the past had so much turnover, that could happen again for next year. But I don't know. I feel like he set himself in a pretty good spot for not just this year, but even going forward.
Yeah. Like I said, I do think Antigua coming back is huge for them, and who knows what's going to happen with the Tim Anderson thing. I know he had to like leave the team indefinitely. I don't know what that means. Like, is he still employed by the university or not? Like, it's very much of a gray area.
Still on their website,
right? Yeah, like he's just, and that's what I thought. And so, like, it's very much a gray area. Like, will he be back or not? Like, he's played a big part in recruiting for them too. So, that's the one thing that I think everyone can agree upon, that Underwood and his staff has taken Illinois recruiting with the basketball program up a massive notch. And it helps whenever you bring in guys like Ayo Dosunmu and he brings the program back, and you developed Kofi Coburn, and Trent Frazier was here, and other guys that have came in through the transfer portal and had success here, like Terrence Shannon Jr. and Marcus Domask last year. Like, people see how Illinois plays. And when you brought up like the being ranked 40th in defensive efficiency, I actually thought that was a pretty, like, I would have guessed more somewhere between like the 70s and 90s, because they were like just inside the top 100 at the end of last year.
Yeah.
But they also scored 90 points a game almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I think the point I'm getting at here is that the way that Illinois plays, it's attractive to a lot of transfers and even, fresh incoming freshmen, just because they play positionless basketball. They try to play fast. They want to run and gun, and they want to, jack up a ton of threes, and like, so that's not necessarily a thing that's been known in the Big Ten for most of my life. And I know there's other teams that have done a form of it, but when I think of Big Ten basketball, for a large majority of my life, I'm always thinking about like grind it out defense. Like, it's just
Can Georgi Beshinishvili start this run that we desperately need because we've scored 6 points in 15 minutes?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But last year was like the first time he really felt like Underwood had the team that he really wanted out there.
Yeah.
And they played a lot like they played a lot like the teams he had when he was at Stephen F. Austin. So
yeah, and those runs were significantly cut down or I shouldn't even say runs, I should say droughts of just they would start the second half with 6 minutes without a point.
Right.
And there were times where it popped up. I'm trying to remember what tournament game that I felt like it came back. Arizona, maybe. They played Arizona, right?
Last season? No.
Who'd they play in the tournament? Who'd they play? Who was the Iowa State?
Iowa State. Yes.
Yep. It was the Iowa State game. I was in the car for that one, so I was listening to it on the radio. But they it was just kind of one of those things where those runs always killed them in years past, and last year that was cut down. So don't let them regress back to that. Let's keep kind of the pedal to the metal and not and avoid those droughts.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, overall, like I said, I think it's great bulletin board material. It is what it is. I'm very intrigued to see how this team comes out. Like those first 3 games, they'll win those 3 games. Cross my fingers and knock on wood. And again, against Eastern Illinois, I will hope and pray that Eastern covers, but Illinois wins. All right, it's going to be like 30 to 35 point spread. Just cover, guys. That's all I ask. As an alum, that's all I ask, right? But they get that Alabama game, and if they hang tough, like we were kind of talking about, like I think that could be a little bit of a hint of what's to come throughout the season. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I can't wait. I've never been this excited really for a season. Maybe. Okay, that's a lie. I was really excited for the team that ended up being the 1 seed with Io and Kofi and Trent. That was like that era could have been so much better if COVID didn't like ruin everything. But at the same time, if COVID didn't happen, who knows if Io even comes back. So it is what it is. But that team entering that season where he ended up winning, I forget the name of the award. I think it's the Bob Cousy Award for best point guard in the country, being the 1 seed and all that. Outside of the ending result of that season was so fun, and I think that was a very anticipated season for me. I'm not getting that vibe because I felt like that team could go to the Final Four, but I guess I'm excited about this season because seeing how Brad Underwood's team played last year and the guys that he brought in, I feel like they're going to try and do that again, which in turn, I feel like it's going to be the first 1 to 90 in every Illinois game this year. And I like points. I can't lie to you, brother. I like points.
Yeah, fair enough. I do want to ask the question from Christopher in the chat really quick because I was wondering the same thing. Your thoughts?
My thoughts.
Your thoughts on Illinois and honorary captain Josh Whitman beating Michigan this Saturday.
Yeah. As most people know, I'm a very fair weather Illinois football fan, but they have kept my attention this year. They almost had an embarrassing loss to Purdue this week. All I will say is 2 years ago, Illinois got upset by Purdue and then played Michigan the next week, I believe, and they had every reason to win that game.
They were robbed.
And then, and then they didn't. So I think you got past what you could call the trap game, and now you have this week to prepare for, a really big opportunity, the biggest opportunity in the Brett Bielema era, I would guess. Yeah, Michigan, I know they're not as good as the Michigan team 2 years ago, but they're still Michigan. They're still the reigning national champions.
They don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, they don't. I think Illinois' offense is better.
I think Michigan would be Michigan would be 1 loss right now, maybe, if they had Luke Altmaier.
Yeah.
Maybe no loss. I think that they'd be genuinely better off with Luke Altmaier.
And I know Michigan's tight end has had some injury problems. I don't know if he's going to play or not. I think Illinois' defense can hang with the best of them. They get turnovers. Like, I know they just gave up like 40 plus points to Purdue, but like I don't know. It's one game, whatever. I feel like their defense has been like the mainstay for them all season. I could be wrong on that. Again, I'm a very fair weather Illinois football fan, so don't come to me for Illinois football takes. I always jump on the wagon when things are going well. I'm very openly admitting that that's how I am as an Illinois football fan. If they were like last year, I tune out after like 3 weeks. I promise you. Like I don't know. That's just how I am.
I can't cheer my head off for the Bears anymore. So I've turned a lot of that to Illinois and a little bit to Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. And I was losing my mind in the game against Purdue last weekend. Mm-hmm. Like genuinely getting mad and pacing around the living room like, what the hell are we doing? Right. What is Aaron Henry thinking? So,
right. Yeah. No, I hear you on that. I was at a wedding, so I wasn't even able to watch it. So here's a great question to end the show from my guy Lazy Forrest Gump, who is a noted Cardinals fan but loves the show and tunes in and supports me, and I give him a ton of credit for dealing with someone like me in the summer. He says, if you could add one John Gross era player to this team, who would it be?
I mean, ooh.
Oh man. Myers Leonard? Did John Gross coach him?
No, I think he's
Was he Bruce Weber?
I think he's Bruce Weber.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, I don't know if they need another guard, but Brandon Paul would.
Yeah.
Or Malcolm Hill was.
Malcolm Hill. I was going to say
Brandon Paul or Malcolm Hill would.
I was going to say Malcolm Hill too, but it's like, do they need another guard? Like, I was trying to think of like a big man, like a big or like one of those like glue guys, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of like a DeMonte Williams type. And I'm kind of blanking on that.
Here, wait, let me just look up really quick. I'll keep it quick. I'm gonna look up the 2014 Illini basketball roster, and
there you go.
We're gonna pick the big men.
Well, he says Tyler Griffey is oh
my god! Of course, Tyler Griffey. Yes. Yeah. How
the guy who beat Indiana?
In which Indiana did not drop in the AP. That's why the AP is such BS. It's because Indiana didn't drop after that game.
Right.
But yeah, Tracy Abrams. Oh my gosh, 2014. What a year!
I would say like, because this team is so young, like if you're gonna get another guard, like someone who's like experienced and has been like, has been in playing in the Big Ten for 3 or 4 years, someone from that era, like someone like that, I guess. I try to forget that era, to be honest with you, Lazy Forrest Gump, even though like there's some real Illini legends in there, no doubt. A little Ravonte Rice, perhaps,
Ravonte Rice. I just said Michael Finke.
Yeah, Michael Finke. There you go. Jeremy Richmond. We should not name that guy, but you know what? Whatever. I heard he got his life together, so congrats to him.
Jalen Coleman Lands played for Illinois at one point.
He did. He
also played for 18 other schools. Won a national title with Kansas.
Yeah, I know. It's so crazy. That's so crazy. All right. Well, that's all we got tonight, folks. Paul was a senior. Jay says Brandon Paul was a senior.
My first Illinois basketball game was a game in Gross's first season.
Nice.
So
I can't remember the first Illini game I went to. Actually, I do remember. I don't remember the exact date, but if I just went and Googled like when Darren Williams got his jersey retired, that's the first Illinois basketball game I ever went to. I went with my uncle at the time. I was a very young kid. But yeah, whatever date that was. But I was unable to go to State Farm last season. I plan to go. And if you would like to go with, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, I'm down.
You just
kind of I thought you were talking to Lazy Forrest Gump.
No, I'm talking to you.
Kind invite. Yeah, I'll go. I'm always down.
Yeah, there's gonna be some good games on the schedule, especially in the Big Ten season. So, yeah, as a few people have said in the chat, like the schedule is tough, but hopefully it's one that what is it? Iron sharpens iron.
Mhm.
Isn't that what Bragg says? He says that all the time. I feel like.
I wouldn't give Bragg's credit for it, but yeah,
Sure,
it's a
I'm
saying.
not
Yeah.
giving Bragg's credit. I think I'm just giving him credit this one time for saying it recently on the Bear Show, and okay. Well, Patrick, thanks for hanging out, man. You're more
Thank you
welcome
for
to
having
jump
me.
on anytime. I think Patrick will probably join me for some post games throughout the season
Hell
or
yeah.
just regular talk on an off day or whatever. Because
You want me on after a loss, trust me.
I definitely will want Patrick on because I have learned that doing this by myself is just not nearly as fun. However, it is fun to just yell at my camera sometimes, but it'd be fun to yell into my camera while you're there too. So,
Yeah, I'll listen.
all right. Not sure if I'll have another show this week. Got a lot of things going on, but if there's some important Illinois news that comes out, I'll try and get something up related to it. So I appreciate y'all for hanging out and your support. Again, hitting over 500 subscribers, it means a lot. Christopher asks if I would stream the football game. Dude, I'm not going to be at home like at all this weekend, so it's just not going to be doable for me. But we'll definitely be streaming some live streaming some Illini basketball games this winter for sure, like I did last year. So stay tuned for those. But yeah, we'll see y'all next time. And again, thanks for all the support. Hit that like button on your way out too. It would mean a lot. All right. As always, guys, ILL.
I know.